and we didn't allow ourselves to be by letting ourselves down in key moments of key games or not being able to capitalise on opportunities we had in all of our games, to be completely honest. But and I don't think the blame, like I said, I don't think the blame should be put all at Wayne Bennett's door.
No, I agree with you.
But the one thing that does wind me up a bit is his justification for not playing George Williams in the third game was basically that he doesn't talk and organise enough. Well, you've had him for a month. You know his flaw. Are you not meant to be the super coach? You've not got 3 or 4 other coaching assistants around you, some of those who have got lots of experience either as coaching or playing internationally.
As big leaders of their teams as well.
Yeah, and he's saying he can't, like, say to Paul Sculthorpe or Paul Wellens or someone, go and have a couple of sessions with him, show him how to lead a guy, show him what he should be telling the people around him, go through videos and say, at this point, what should you be telling them? And that sort of thing, then try and put it into practice in training sessions, rather than put him on the bench and only use him when the game's already gone, when he has made more assists than anyone else in the tournament.
No, I agree.
It's stupid. And
now we're going to role reverse. I also feel like that you're absolutely right, and I'd echo your point on the senior pros not stepping up. With the exception of James Graham, who I thought had a fine tournament. Yeah. Burgess's didn't step up. Josh Hodgson was
Tom Burgess, I thought, was really good. I think one of the other coaching mistakes, and they never learned from it through the whole tournament, was don't have the twins on at the same time. Yeah. I mean, the first thing would have been, why is George in your squad? But let's drop Liam Farrell, who had an absolutely perfectly fine game against Scotland, and drop him because I don't think he's big enough. I'm sorry. Well, he might not be as big as you want him to be, but he fucking doesn't miss a tackle. He makes breaks, and he scored a try at the end of that game, and it's just nonsensical, this size crap. But so there are a few coaching issues with it, but it ultimately, Sam Burgess with his pathetic offloads in the first game against New Zealand, and I've never been as wound up as an England fan as I was. I mean, I watched England get absolutely destroyed in the World Cup in 2000 at Bolton and sat on the car park for a million hours after because it was terrible to get off.
Yes.
In fact, we sat on it so long that we managed to walk to McDonald's, get back to the car, and the car had moved like 10, 20 yards.
That's insane.
And I felt worse after this tournament than I did after that night.
Because this tournament promised a lot in terms of what we could potentially achieve. And we've not lived up to that. It's not
because it was a finishing job. Like we lost the World Cup semi-final right at the end on a freakish sort of bit of, a few freaky plays in there and that sort of thing. But right at the end, and that was at that point that felt about how close we were.
Yeah, and we feel like we've gone backwards from there, I would say. It feels.
We've got no closer. Yeah, we've got no better. We were that close again because it was a dubious drop goal that kept us out of the final at the end of the day. In all seriousness, that's how close we are to New Zealand. We're not. We could on our day we could flip flop with New Zealand.
Yes, we could.
Right,
but it's not the dubious drop goal. It was the poor execution.
I agree, and yet we were poor, but we were that close to them.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Australia, we couldn't afford to be that poor for 20 minutes that we did either side of half time and not let the game get out of hand like it did and not let the game get away from us like it did.
Yeah.
We did score more points against this Australian side than anyone else has this year, though, so that's a plus.
Great. Did we win? It means nothing. It's a plus, but...
What did everyone else have to say?
Well, lots, as you might say. One of my favourite ones, Chris Matey, he just went with, for fuck's sake. So, good luck. Alfie got in touch and said, most promising stuff I've seen England play in a long time, he says. As hard as it is for some to take, this was always going to be a building process. Bringing Williams on when the game was gone was genius. No pressure on the young lad, which can only go towards building his confidence. Williams has his spot in England. Let's build him, not destroy him. The future is bright and sparkling for England.
He doesn't lack in confidence. The guy managed to win a grand final after someone had shaved his eyebrows off and made his hair all stupid. He doesn't lack in confidence. He could have carried it. He doesn't lack in confidence.
Yeah. Tyler Cass fan, England didn't give the 80-minute performance needed to be an excellent Australia side. We still don't have enough belief in ourselves. It will come. Missing those 2 kicks to touch was just criminal. Lee Whitnell said, different lineup but same type of performance. Solid spells, brilliant in flashes but always capable of looking like amateurs. It's hard to see what Bennett has brought to the team. I don't feel like we've kicked on this year. His tinkering with the halves whilst Watkins, George Burgess and Lomax stay in doesn't make sense. Hopefully it'll come together next year, like one of those paintings that look a right fucking mess until the artist turns it upside down and it's an awesome portrait, with a bit of luck.
In defence of Callum Watkins, who else have we got? And was he actually that terrible? He bombed a few tries in the first game.
Yeah.
And
I think both centres were guilty of that.
And he probably didn't impose his will enough. And Sargentson in the game he played as well. And our centres did all cough up chances. That's certain. But is there anyone else you'd be pulling in ahead of him? George Burgess we didn't need because we had Middles on the bench anyway. We didn't need him to be in the side. Lomax, I kind of feel like
who else was there given injuries?
In the Scotland game, he was the person who suffered the most from how terrible Luke Gale played in terms of throwing crappy passes to people in crappy positions. He suffered 2 or 3 times from that. And so I think I would have felt harsher on him. And also, who else was there to come in this tournament? I mean, Ratchford, you could argue, but
he had his foot in a boot.
But like in this game, he did,
So he wasn't coming in.
No.
So
by this final game, there was no other options.
Yeah, maybe Bateman
into the centres,
possibly, but that's yet more jiggery pokery with the pack, isn't it? So. Ian Gatwood. Ian Lowe got in touch with us. I do apologise, Ian. You're a new one on me, and I'm just used to saying Ian Gatwood. Ian Lowe.
Hello, Ian.
Got in touch.
Gatwood for a while.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I have. I was having a chat with him on Twitter, on Facebook the other night, but it was more just back and forth about kids and stuff. Ian Lowe goes on to say, surprised yet pleased in the way that Bennett went with Bram, who I thought had a very good game. Just wish we realised that ploughing it through the middle against the elite doesn't work, and when we decide to believe in each other, I thought we passed it well and would like to think we got the Aussies thinking and on the back foot. It was just our final ball that let us down. Bateman, I thought, along with McGilvery, was superb. With the talent we have, the future under Bennett is promising. Well, we shall see.
I did say to you yesterday, didn't I? When we were driving to the game, and Cass was sort of being a bit grumpy about the idea of England never winning anything, and I was like, I'm still sat here thinking we're going to win the World Cup next year, because that's just what I do.
It's still the hope that kills you, Mark. Seriously, you want to come over to the pessimistic side of things. All right, Paul got in touch. Oh no, we'll go Paul O'Brien first of all. He said, great first 35 minutes, then it all went downhill. Our kicking game was poor. Lovely to see Paul O'Brien's updated photos with him wearing his Super League pod jersey with pride as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic work there, Paul O'Brien. Paul Campbell, he said England were poor and there was no leadership on the field. Burgess looked a shadow of himself. I assume he means Sam, but he could mean George. I do think he is captain material. Maybe he means don't. He said because the captain needs to push players and lead from the front. In this series, Burgess did not do that, but then no one else stepped up either.
That was the other difference between this year and last year's Baskerville Shield win, and he picks on it there, and we should have picked on it ourselves, but well done, Paul, for reminding us. Captaincy, leadership, it wasn't there in this tournament from Sam Burgess, whereas it had been there from Sean O'Loughlin last year, and apart from for like 90 seconds at the end of the most important game he'd ever played in an England shirt, it was there the 2 or 3 years before that from Kevin Sinfield too.
Yeah. Would you go on James Graham for captain then, or would you pick someone else?
I'm not sure there's anyone who had all the qualities he would need, but Graham would be the closest.
Yeah, I think you might be right. We'll carry on with Paul. He says,
but then would I want Graham doing my media? Probably not.
I don't know. If it's just, I sincerely hope it wasn't
it's
just
too sore a loser to do the media with Bennett as well.
Can you imagine? There will be no interviews. Right, the team seems to have gone. Can you imagine them? But when they do the thing where they sit the captain next to the coach and talk about stuff, it's just silence and shitty looks. Paul goes on to say the team seems to have gone backwards so far under Bennett. Hopefully, he can turn it around by the time the World Cup comes around. Not many positives can be taken from any of the games. We'll give some airtime to one of our Australian listeners, Wally Frogmore. He says, at the start of the game, I thought we had a match on our hands, but the more it went on, the more I started to ask, were the Aussies too slick, or were the Poms just their own worst enemy? P.S. I still don't know.
A bit of both.
Yeah, you are exceptionally slick.
They became slicker as it went on, and England kept making crucial mistakes of giving away stupid penalties at key times. England should have known Robert Hicks would have evened up that early penalty count, a justified early penalty count that should have seen Aaron Woods get probably close to a sin bin warning, because he was in and around messing around at every single tackle he had. But we know what he's like, so don't give him an excuse to blow, because he's gone to with half an excuse. And they were penalties, but in tough physical games, there's referees who don't give some of the stuff, and there's referees that do. And when one team's behind on the penalty count, Robert Hicks gives the soft one, gives anyone he can. That's how he referees games.
Yep. Just got to say, mate, you can't go slagging off Aaron Woods in this house anymore.
Well, I'm a big fan, haven't we?
He's someone's favourite player. Predominantly because he was the only one that he was the one that was walking towards us, and he was the one that I could point out. But
his hair and all.
Number 10 had long hair and a beard, Daddy.
She liked Thurston as well. She thought he was the best player.
Yeah, pointed him out while I sort of slipped that little bit of insight. She got the benefit of my experience as a rugby league
on
voice.
Hicks, just to defend him on the same. I think he's a really good decision maker. I think he gets most decisions right. I think he's a really poor
on one hand
game manager.
Exactly. You've got to be good at both. And we were talking about this. I don't think the players instinctively show enough respect to referees across the board. I think we're losing that. And I think Hicks is one of the people that loses out because of that. However, his weakness, this whole I best even up the penalty count thing, Australia played the ref better than we did, to be honest. And it's just, you can make the argument and say, well, it's not sport. It's not sporting. It's not part of the game. At the end of the day, it's professional sport, and they're going to try and eke out any kind of advantage they can get. And Cam Smith's the king of it. Cam Smith loves chatting to the ref and knows exactly what to say and plays that mind game perfectly. And when he was telling Robert Hicks to think about what the count was, he knew exactly what he was doing, and it was great captaincy from Cam Smith. And fine, I have no real moral objection to that. But you can say that Hicks is a great decision maker and he gets decisions right. That's fine. But this make-up call side of thing undermines that completely from my point of view.
He doesn't make the judgment on what's the right call to give. He makes the judgment on can I give a penalty or not, and he bases that on two things: one, if an offence was committed, and two, what's the penalty count? Rather than what I've been doing all games. Sort of thing.
Precisely, absolutely. And this whole idea of the penalty count should be even. Where does that even come from? Why should that be the case? There's no reason for it. There's absolutely no logical reason for it. Why would you expect that in most rugby league matches, why would that be the norm, that of the hundreds of games of rugby league that get played every season, that on average the penalty counts are pretty close? That's ridiculous. That would be a massive freak statistic.
But every single thing that you aim for becomes... You shouldn't aim for anything like that. I was...
No, I agree. They shouldn't be aiming for that level of parity. It should just be based on who gives away the most penalties.
I heard about a business-related target that was... I work in the complaints industry. Well, no, I don't work in the complaints industry, but in the industry I work in the complaints team, and I heard about a target, not at my company, not at my team,
Look at you completely separate yourself from this. I'm not sure
benchmark. Well, I shouldn't. Yeah, but of benchmarking to how many complaints are upheld or not upheld. It's like
what? That's ridiculous.
It's a sort of not as a target to achieve, but as a if you don't reach a certain level, there has to be explanations. Now, I think that sort of thing leads you to,
of course,
target things as soon as you sort of put them in the conversation. And it's that sort of thing that I think referees and refereeing and probably the over-analysis of refereeing leads to, unfortunately.
So do you think
you have to target stuff when they're professionals, when they've got the job... When they've got the job descriptions and the targets to reach for bonuses and what have you, and those sorts of things all come into it. I would think, and it becomes a negative.
So do you think that when they go back and review performance within the governing bodies, then that the referees have it pointed out to them that there was a wild penalty count, and maybe that should be closer?
I think so. Yeah.
That's terrifying. Yeah. That's absolutely terrifying.
I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if because they'll be targeted on certain levels of neutrality to be displayed or whatever.
Yeah.
And how do you display that best? Give the same amount of penalties.
I'll just call it fair.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it for my money. Anyway.
But why else would there be any conversation about whether the penalty count